This is how to loom knit a mini cowl. You'll need a 12 peg loom, a super bulky yarn, and you'll need some scrap black and white yarn, 2 rhinestones, and polyfil. And I decided to show how to make a Jersey milk cow because it was going to be the easiest way to show you without too many color changes. So I'm going to start off with the body, and I've done a drawstring cast on circularly, and I've knitted 3 rows, and then I've purled 1 row, and then I knitted a total of 12 rows. And you want to go ahead and pause the video, you can go ahead and do that. And if you're wondering what kind of yarn I'm using Bernat blanket yarn. It works up really good for the stuffed animals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working the chest area, and I've done this before with several of my other stuffed animals that are minis. So go ahead and knit 2, wrap and turn the next peg, and then you want to knit 4. So if I ever go out of screen on another video or anything, you know, this video shows you how to do it too. Okay, so go ahead and knit 3 after you've wrapped and turned. Then you're going to wrap and turn again, and then you're going to knit 2, wrap and turn, then knit 3, knit 4, knit 5, and then you want to knit 9 pegs. After you knit your 9 pegs, we're going to start working flat. We're going to start working back and forth. Opening up the back of the neck. So at this point we're going to come back the direction we came, and we're going to knit 12 pegs. We're working flat. So go back the direction you came, and so going back and forth, go ahead and knit 12 pegs. Okay, now you want to knit 12 pegs, 4 more rows, and then just cast off. Go ahead and pause the video to complete that, and I'll show you how to sew it up a little later on in the video. Now we're going to explain the legs, and you're going to do a drawstring cast on of 10 pegs working flat. Then you're going to knit 2 rows, then you're going to purl 1 row, then you're going to knit 8 rows, and then you're going to cast off, and then you're going to sew them up, and you're going to make 3, and you're going to stuff them. And how you want to do that is, after you're done, that's what it'll look like flat, You'll drawstring in that cast on, and you can see the bottom is flattening off. And when you go to sew up, you want to sew straight up, and you want to connect that purled line on each side, and then you want to sew straight up from there, and you'll want to stuff. So go ahead and also pause the video to complete the legs, and we'll start on the head. When you start on the head, I did a drawstring cast on of 12 pegs working flat, and then I knitted 4 rows. So that's what I did to start, and now we're going to start working the ear row. And so you're going to knit 2, and then the next 2 pegs are going to be the section for your first ear. So you're going to knit 2, increase 1 by wrapping the yarn around the next peg, knit 2 again, and you're going to increase by wrapping the yarn around the next peg. Then you're going to knit 3. And when you knit that third one, make sure you don't toss over that original loop. Now you want to knit 4 for 2 rows. Remember, don't toss over the original loop. Now you want to knit 3 and then knit 2. And then knit 2. And then you want to knit 3 and then knit 4 for 2 rows. Now you want to knit 4 for 2 rows. At this point, you want to decrease or increase pegs back down to your original 2. So go ahead and decrease 1 on each side of those 2 pegs. And then you'll knit those 2 for 3 rows. So here's going to be our first row. Then 2 more rows. Then 1 more. Now we have just completed an ear, and if you do not feel comfortable with this technique I'm fixing to show, you can skip it and sew your ears up later. But I'm going to bring my original loops back on, and I'm going to follow from the next peg back to find my original loop, and I'm going to put it on the peg. And what this will keep me from having to do is sew the ear up later, because I'm lazy and don't like to do too much sewing. So that helps me to not have to sew up the ear later on. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, don't do it. You can sew the ear up after you're done with the head. So you want to knit 3, and we're going to do a wrap and turn section, and the reason for this is there's more of a lift at the top of a cow's head. So go ahead and wrap and turn and knit 2, wrap and turn and knit 3. And we want to create that lift with this technique so that the ears look like they're dropped a little lower and the head looks like it's a little higher. Go ahead and knit 4. And now you want to knit 4, and then you will start your second ear on the next 2 pegs. So you want to start working your second ear on the next 2 pegs, and again you'll want to knit 2, increase 1, wrapping it around the next peg, knit 2, increase 1, wrapping it around the next peg, knit 3, making sure not to pull over that original loop on the 3rd peg, then you'll want to knit 4 for 2 rows, making sure not to lift the original loop on those end pegs. There's your first row, there's your second row. Then knit 3, and then knit 2. So there's your knit 3. Then knit 2. Then knit 3, and then you'll knit 4 for 2 rows. There's your knit 3. And now knit your 4 for 2 rows. Now you want to decrease by 1 on each side to get back to your original 2 loops. To finish your ear up. Then you'll knit those 2 pegs for 3 rows, and this will be your first row. And this will be your second row. This will be your third, and then you'll knit back to your end peg. But first you'll want to bring your original loops back, and again, if you don't feel comfortable with this, you'll just need to sew up your ear later. So now you have your 2 ears. And now you want to knit 2 to complete the row. Now you'll want to knit 12 pegs for 3 rows. And I will warn you, because these are pretty standard rows, I'm going to speed through it. You might want to pause the video to go ahead and do these 3 rows and catch up from there. Okay, now we're going to do something that we're going to add in a color. So go ahead and knit 2, and then you're going to change to a white. And the reason why we're changing to a white, you're going to knit 3 and change to a white, is because we're going to have a white show up around the eyes. Because if you look at a Jersey cow, there is a nice lighter colored spot around the eyes, so we're going to create that lighter spot. So go ahead and knit 2, then change back to the tan color, knit 2, change back to the white color, knit 2, change back to the tan, knit 3. And you're going to repeat this same thing going back the other direction. So you're going to knit 3, change to your white, knit 2, change to your tan, knit 2, change to your white, knit 2. Then you'll change to your tan and knit 2, 3. Now we're going to want to decrease by 2 on each side. And how you want to decrease by 2 on each side is you'll want to lift up 3 loops starting from the end. So there's 1, 2, 3. Place the last loop you picked up on the next peg, and then place 2 loops on the very last peg on the end. Repeat this same thing on the other side. So lift up 3 loops, then place the last loop you lifted onto the next peg, then place 2 loops on the end peg. You should now have 8 pegs with loops, 4 pegs without. After you do that, go ahead and knit 8 pegs for 3 rows. This is beginning to work the snout area. I'm going to tie off my white point. And go ahead and knit all the way across. And then do 2 more rows when you reach the end, and I will speed the video up for that because it's just standard knitted row in one color. So go ahead and knit 2 more rows. Now you want to change to the white, and then you'll knit 2 rows. And the reason we're doing this is that there is a lighter section just before the nose on a Jersey cow. So we want to create that section, and we're just going to do a couple of rows in the white yarn. And then do 1 more row. And then we'll be changing to the black to complete the nose area. So go ahead and change to black yarn. And these can be scraps. As you can see, I don't have much of them. They work just fine with the scraps. So at this point, you're going to knit 2, then you're going to knit 1 3 times, and this is a nostril, so there's 1, 2, 3. That's your first nostril. Then you're going to knit 2, and then you're going to knit 1 3 times, which is your second nostril. This also gives it a very distinctive shape when you do the drawstring cast off at the end. Doing the nostril area, it widens the top of the snout, making it appear like there is definitely a shape difference. Go ahead and knit a straight row, and then you'll want to drawstring cast off, and you're done knitting your head on the loom. So go ahead and drawstring cast off, and I'll show you how to sew the head up, and I'm going to give you a couple of pointers about how I sometimes do things. Particularly on these small projects like this. Just go ahead and drawstring that together, and then if you want, you can go ahead and start stretching those knit loops out. You can stretch your nostrils out a little bit. Start doing just a little bit of shaping. So I'm going to sew up the bottom area of the snout to the white point, and then I'm going to change up and sew the rest of it in a tan. Now, usually I show cutting that extra yarn that I have on the needle off, because I'm not going to really be needing that black anymore. But lately what I've been doing, and I find that it's really helpful because the snout area is thinner and you don't want it filled up so much with polyfill. Well, instead of throwing that yarn away and cutting it, stuff it inside the snout area. And the great thing is any spot that you see through will be the color of the snout area. So that actually helps to stuff that extra yarn back into the snout. It hides a lot more of the little openings than the polyfill can. And because it's thinner, it won't push the snout open quite so much. So I find it does a much better job in general with appearances, because I have heard from some people who've tried my projects, they're wondering why their projects don't look as good. I don't tend to stuff my snout hardly at all. That's the truth of it. I stuff the head a lot more, the base of the head a lot more, and the snout very little, and I do a lot of shaping. And so that's just a little trick of how I tend to do things. And I don't sew up my heads all the way. I like to keep an opening for easy stuff, and I like to sew the head on the opening of the head underneath with the opening of the neck. so I don't close those off. And as you can see, I'm throwing that extra in there. Plus, you don't use as much stuffing, so you're saving so much by doing that, and conserving yarn and using everything matters. So I don't like to waste things. I've been known to take a whole bunch of scrap that I have in my little trash bin and stuff full of an entire stuffed animal and just scrap yarn. I've done that before. Okay, so I just closed off the back of the head, and I'm going to leave that strand loose, and I'm going to go ahead and set the head. If you didn't bring your original loops back on, you'll need to sew your ears up. So now I'm going to show you how to sew the neck of your body up, and I'm just going to leave the top open and just connect the corners and sew down the spine. And sew all the way down and close that hole up all the way down to the base. See? And this is how I typically do this. And then you take the crochet hook and pull the extra strand. And then you want to take the back end and you want to close it off. And this is how I like to close the back end off. Take that crochet hook, pull through, and then pull through again to make a knot. And then hide the end with pulling the end through. And normally this isn't difficult, but as you saw, the yarn broke on me. Okay, now you just want to stuff it. And I'm going to show you how to make the tail. You're going to draw string, cast on 10 pegs flat in the black. And also, if you were kind of wondering how I do this, you're kind of getting a general idea. Now you want to knit 10 pegs for 3 rows. And I'm going to speed this up because these are just standard rows, nothing special. Once you do that, you want to decrease by 1 on each end. And I'm only doing this decrease once, but if you'd like a thinner tail, you can decrease again rather than decrease once. You can decrease twice rather than once, and you can get a thinner tail if you prefer a thinner tail. Go ahead and knit 8. So instead of going down to 8, you might want to go down to 6, again, if you want a thinner tail. You will end up sewing your tail up. Just so you know, I'm not going to go in and show it, but you will end up sewing your tail up. So go ahead and then knit the row after you've done your decreasing. Then you're going to change to your tan color. Again, if you want a thinner tail, you'll need to decrease again. So go ahead and change to your tan color. And then you'll knit 8 for 10 rows, and then you'll cast off. Whatever way you prefer to cast off and you're most comfortable with. Go ahead and knit 8 pegs for 10 rows in the tan, cast off, and then you'll need to sew up your tail. So you'll want to go ahead and pause the video to complete that, and then we'll go to showing you how to go about assembling the cowl. Now here's a guide to assembling. You'll want to definitely sew on the head first, and you want to line the back of the head up with the center spine area that you sewed up, and then you'll want to sew your tail on at the purled line, lining everything with the spine up. When sewing on your front legs, you want to find those 2 columns that you didn't wrap and turn, so they should be untouched. And you'll find the base of it, and you want to take and sew the front leg from the base back, and then you'll follow that line all the way back to the purled line, and then you'll sew the back leg on from the purled line forward. And you want to repeat that same process on both sides to sewing on the legs. Once you've done that, you'll need to hot glue your eyes on, and I used 2 black rhinestones, and I just glued them over the white spots. And then after this point, you go in and you start playing with it and molding it and getting it to the shape you want. But pretty much after you do that, you're done. And there is your cowl.